Will DC ever catch up to Marvel in terms of game production? This is a question that came up the other day when I was playing some Marvel Rivals, and I was watching a video on the side about how Warner Brothers is currently on the market and they're trying to sell. And this had me thinking. So, a lot of what happened with the MCU and DC EU, whatever it's called now, was DC chasing, what Marvel had already done, having come in a bit of a few years later when it came to like making their own cinematic universe. They sort of flopped a bit because they were already late to the party in a sense. And so, while the Marvel sort of trend has sort of died out a bit, the Marvel movies aren't as popular as they used to be. Now, I guess the next best thing would be games, since they all both started off on comics, and then I guess cinema was the next best option. But now with games currently being one of the most popular, forms of entertainment that there are in the world, it kind of makes you think whether DC will try to catch up to Marvel again. I mean, just look at the last few years. We have multiple games from just Insomniac alone, the Spider-Man games. Now we have a Wolverine game coming out soon, as well as an ongoing live service game in Marvel Rivals. Of course, there might be a lot of other mobile games, but I guess the point I'm trying to make here is in relation to, console PC games. So the bigger, budget games. And looking at DC side, honestly, I don't know of any. Outside of Kill the Justice League and the Batman Arkham remakes, I don't really remember much else. Maybe this is just me and my lack of, researching this a bit more, but it's just something I was thinking about. In terms of what is mainstream at the moment, I don't think there is a single DC game on the market. And yes, we could say that something like the Batman Arkham series is what then went on to inspire the Spider Man series. No doubt, yeah. A lot of the combat and some of the missions are very similar to what was already done back then. However, that's then, and we're living in the present. And so, right now, looking at the situation, the DC side of things isn't really popping. And I hope they don't try to do what, you know, they tried to do with the movies, because that'll fail. You see, Marvel has already sort of established itself within the gaming sphere through, like I said, Spider Man games. Now you've got Wolverine, which tons of people, including myself, are excited for, as well as, Marvel Rivals. And yeah, there was things like the Marvel's Avengers, which kind of flopped badly. Not kind of, it flopped really badly. But you have like all these different types of games that have been released and to some extent brought some sort of attention to themselves. And going forward into the future, I saw someone online, I might show a screenshot, but I saw someone online that Marvel itself is quite happy with Insomniac making, all these Insomniac IP games. And so, sorry, all these Marvel IP games that they are considering a longer term partnership with them, which is good news. One for Sony, because Sony, Insomniac is a Sony studio, and the other then for Marvel itself, and that they'll continue having these super high quality games from Insomniac. Now, there is, a lot of things I could say about them, and the hope that they will get better over time with some areas. But overall, I enjoy those games. I played both, I mean, all three of the Spider Man games, Spider Man 1, Miles Morales, and Spider Man 2. And I'm looking forward to Wolverine. I'm a huge fan of Insomniac overall, and really like the worlds that they build, which I think are really cool. Outside of that, there was Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, which is one game that I really thought was cool, just very underrated, and maybe it could have used a bit more polish. I don't know. It wasn't like buggy or anything. It just felt stiff. Sometimes these AAA games don't deliver the type of smoothness that you'd want from certain characters. Like Star Lord, now that I've played Marvel Rivals, I feel like could have been a lot more fluid in terms of his movement and things like that. But we weren't necessarily given that version. He is still pretty fun to play, don't get me wrong. But yeah, anyway, that's not the point of this. The point of this is, looking at whether Marvel itself is already ahead in this race. Is this a forever thing? Will DC ever come back? I know there's been other Marvel games that were cancelled, but that just goes to show how many games there were. I think there was supposed to be a Wonder Woman game at some point, but yeah. If we take the two studios that probably have the most games in each, I don't know, in each franchise, then you're looking at Rocksteady with the Arkham games, and you're looking at Insomniac with their Spider-Man games. At the moment, at present, in the past it was a bit different, but with the latest ones sort of being those two, it isn't a good sign when one has a game that was reviewed very negatively, which in this case was Kill the Justice League, and while the other one is currently, developing one of the most hyped games, Marvel games ever, which would be Wolverine in this case. I don't know if ever's the right word, but hey, I like Wolverine. The last Wolverine game we had was a really long time ago, and I feel like it was a good game. I just never clicked with me. I didn't finish it or anything. But with that, the the extent at which Marvel has already invested in gaming should show that they are serious about it, and I don't know whether DC is. Outside of rumors about the whole current DCU and things like that not necessarily working out again, and DC probably going to restart it again. Who the hell knows? But it doesn't shine a positive light on their franchises. Because yes, for years, I've personally wondered what a Superman game would play like. I was hoping, as probably with many people, that the next game after the Arkham series would be Superman. You know, as much as that would have been a very difficult game to make in terms of actually producing it, because of Superman just almost being indestructible, but that that would have been something interesting to see, something interesting to play. Likewise with a lot of other Spider-Man franchises. I mean, not Spider-Man. A lot of other Marvel franchises. They'd also be interesting to make games of, and I feel like there is that potential. Like there was that cancelled Black Panther and Captain America game, and I think with what Marvel Rivals brings in terms of what it's shown us, Marvel Rivals makes it possible for us to have this idea of what these games would play like. Like I can picture a Black Panther game, like a single player Black Panther game, playing somewhat similar to what Black Panther plays like in Marvel Rivals, just with an expanded skill tree and just more things to do. Probably stealth missions, etc. And I can picture what a Thor game would play like. Marvel Rivals, I think, brings the possibility of a lot of other games. It brings like this picture of what more of these games would look like, and the more characters they add, the bigger the possibility. I mean, look at Spider-Man. Spider-Man 1 and 2, well, 1 Miles Morales, which I'll call 1.5, and 2, they all brought this interesting perspective of the civilian side of them. Maybe more so too, I guess. You got to play as Venom. Venom was pretty fun. He played pretty fun. And looking at Venom in Marvel Rivals, that also like kind of shows a bit of a picture there. So it 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 honestly opens up the possibilities that aren't there. And would we ever get a DC Rivals? I think that would be super cool. Would it be successful as a hero shooter? I don't know. maybe, maybe not. I don't even know what that would look like, but there was a video I watched like a while ago that someone made. I'll try see if I can find it, but someone made sort of giving ideas of what a DC rivals would look like. Who would be who? Of course, like you'd have Superman probably as a tank, and Batman as a dive character. All these things, but I don't know. That's just where I am. I don't know if DC will ever catch up to Marvel in terms of producing games and making games, because as it stands now, they're already behind. You know, Marvel has been continuing their MCU for pretty much ever now, and with next year there being a new Avengers movie coming out, DC's with the refresh of their universe haven't even sort of gotten close to building their next Justice League, which I don't even think really needed to happen. They rushed into it, and this led to them being where they are, and yeah. But anyway, with gaming wise, I feel like we'll probably get an Avengers game long before we get probably like even an X-Men game, considering Wolverine might have different playable characters. Hopefully, I don't know. We'll see, but we might potentially get an X-Men game or even an Avengers game long before we actually get you know a sustainable or long-term sort of franchise in DC. But yeah, that's just my take. Please let me know what you think. And yeah, if you like the video, please leave a like, subscribe, etc. Thank you.